In a dimly lit room on the massive spaceship Solaris, a group of cadets gathered around a holographic screen. They were all eager, young minds training to become heroes of the galaxy. Commander Jax, a stern but fair leader, stood before them, his eyes scanning the faces of his eager students. Today was special. Today, they would watch a piece of footage that had academics buzzing, and rumors ran wild through the halls. The room fell silent as the hologram flickered to life. What appeared on the screen was a chaotic scene from a distant planet called Xandria. Alien creatures, known for their viciousness, were battling what looked like a lone human soldier. He was outnumbered but moved with a grace that astonished everyone in the room. Commander Jax felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen many combat videos, but this was different. This man was unlike any other he had witnessed. "Where is this footage from?" a cadet named Miris asked, her brow furrowed with confusion. She had always been curious about everything around her, especially the unknown. "Is he really human?" Commander Jax nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the soldier. This was captured by a reconnaissance drone that was on a mission to gather data on Xandria's wildlife. The sheer tactical skill of this soldier is remarkable. But we never identified who he was. The cadets leaned in closer as the footage played on. The soldier, bound in what seemed like advanced armor, dodged and weaved through flying projectiles and alien attacks. His movements were sharp and deliberate, suggesting vast experience. It was as if he knew how each creature would attack before it moved. The room buzzed with whispers of excitement. "Who was he?" whispered Orion, another cadet with dark hair and an inquisitive nature. "He could take on a whole enemy army alone." Just then, the footage changed. The soldier took out his weapon, which emitted a bright beam of energy. He fired it seamlessly, striking down several aliens in seconds. The cadets watched in awe, enraptured by his skill. But what made them even more curious was the moment when the soldier turned towards the camera and raised his visor helmet. A face appeared, and gasps filled the room. It was a human face, but one that none of them recognized. "He looks familiar," Miris whispered, her eyes wide. Commander Jax paused the footage. "Let's take a closer look. Everyone, focus. This is important." The flickering image froze, showing the soldier's face clearly. The cadets were all lost in thought, examining his features. "What if he isn't just a soldier?" Orion suggested. "What if he has a story? What if he's been fighting for something larger?" The commander nodded thoughtfully. "Every soldier has a story. But this one, he might be a key to understanding the ongoing conflict with the alien species on Xandria. We need to find out more." At that moment, the lights in the room flickered, and alarms blared. A frantic voice came over the intercom. "All cadets report to the command center immediately. Potential breach detected on the lower decks." The cadets scrambled out of the room, but their minds were still on the footage. Who was that soldier? What did he want? As they raced through the corridors, they could hear the clamor of footsteps and people shouting orders. Commander Jax led the charge, his heart pounding in sync with the alarms. Each step felt heavier as they approached the command center. Once inside, they saw the screens displaying images of chaos. Creatures that looked similar to those in the footage were fighting their way into the ship. The crew was engaged in fierce combat, striving to contain the breach. "We need to defend the ship," Jax barked, taking command of the situation. He turned to the cadets. "You are all trained for this. Form teams, and help where you can." Miris, Orion, and a few other cadets formed a small group. "Let's go," Miris shouted, her courage shining through the fear. They moved quickly, ensuring everyone was working in unison. As they fought against the invaders, Miris remembered the soldier from the footage. "If that man can fight alone, maybe we can work together to protect each other," she yelled, firing her stun weapon at one of the creatures. The team rallied behind her, following her example. For the next few hours, the battle raged within the walls of the Solaris. Azrael, a tall and athletic cadet with sharp reflexes, acted as the group's defender. He helped shield his teammates as they respectfully took down each creature one at a time. They worked strategically, picking off the invaders while ensuring each other's safety. Finally, the last creature fell, and the room echoed with heavy breathing. The cadets shared relieved glances, realizing they had fought side by side and succeeded. Commander Jax joined them after securing the command center. His respect for the cadets had skyrocketed. They had proven their resolve. "Great job, everyone," he said, proud of their teamwork. "But we need to stay vigilant. This was just one attack." He stepped closer, his voice lowering. "We may need to understand the threat we face, and that has to begin with the soldier in that video." Just then, the lights dimmed, and a new holographic feed began to play. It was footage of a massive fleet of alien ships approaching. The room fell silent again, uncertainty hanging thick in the air. "What do we do now?" Orion asked, staring at the screen. Commander Jax took a deep breath. "We prepare. We gather intel. And we find out who that soldier is. Because there may be more at stake than we realize. Perhaps he is not just an ally, he could be our greatest hope." In that moment, the cadets felt a renewed sense of purpose. And as they watched the approaching threat, they also felt ready to uncover the truth about the lone soldier, who might just change everything in the fight ahead. In a far-off future where Earth had joined a galactic alliance, a group of young cadets were training to become protectors of the universe. They were being trained in an enormous academy located on a remote planet known as Zephyr. The academy was filled with advanced technology, flying cars, and walls that shimmered with holograms. Among the cadets was a young girl named Mia, who was determined to prove herself. She had always dreamed of becoming a great hero like her parents. One day, the cadets gathered in the main training hall, a vast room with high ceilings, equipped with screens displaying images of distant planets and alien species. Excitement filled the air as several instructors stood on the stage, their faces serious. Mia felt a knot in her stomach as she sensed something was different this time. "Cadets," began Commander Caden, a tall man with piercing blue eyes. "Today, we have something special for you. We have footage from an old incident during the Shadow Wars. We want you to analyze it." He pointed to the main screen, which flickered to life. The footage showed a dark scene, chaos and fear as a group of soldiers ran through a smoky area. Alarms blared, and flashes of light filled the screen. The camera focused on a single soldier, his face hidden by a helmet, as he fought off shadowy figures. Mia gasped as the footage continued, revealing the soldier's unbelievable speed and agility. The crowd murmured, their eyes wide. Suddenly, the footage cut out abruptly, leaving the room in silence. Mia's heart raced. What had happened to that soldier? The instructors exchanged uneasy glances. Commander Caden's voice broke the silence. "The soldier you just saw was presumed lost. But we have a surprise for you." With a wave of his hand, he activated a hidden door at the side of the hall. It slid open, revealing a bright light. From the light emerged a figure draped in a hooded cloak. The cadets gasped as the figure stepped forward, and Mia felt a chill run down her spine. The figure lowered the hood, and Mia felt her jaw drop. It was a young man, barely older than herself, with striking green eyes. "I am Ethan," he said in a clear voice, "and I am here to tell you about what happened." The cadets leaned forward, eager to learn. Ethan began to speak, revealing the truth behind the footage. "I was part of a mission during the Shadow Wars, a conflict that tested our limits. My team and I were sent to a remote planet to investigate strange energy readings. We found ourselves surrounded by enemies we couldn't comprehend." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "We fought bravely, but we were outnumbered. In the chaos, I was separated from my team. Just when it seemed like all was lost, I stumbled upon an ancient artifact glowing with energy. I instinctively activated it, and it gave me powers I never dreamed possible." He gestured around the room. "What you saw was me using those powers to escape. I thought I had lost my team, but I could not abandon my mission. The artifact transformed my body and amplified my abilities. I was no longer just a soldier. I had become something more." The hall was filled with hushed whispers. Mia's mind raced. Could it be true? She raised her hand, her heart pounding. "Ethan, what happened to your team?" Ethan sighed, sadness washing over his face. "I searched for them, but time passed differently after I activated the artifact. I lost track of time and space. When I finally returned, I found that everyone believed I was dead. I had to live with the weight of that knowledge for years." Commander Caden stepped forward, his expression serious. "Ethan, your story is difficult for many of us to believe. Many think you are a ghost of the past. How can we trust you?" Ethan looked directly at Caden, his gaze steady. "Because I am not here to haunt you. I am here to help. The galaxy is still under threat from those who seek to abuse power, just like those who attacked us during the Shadow Wars. I want to train the next generation to prevent that." Mia felt a spark of determination ignite within her. She wanted to help, to stand against the forces that threatened them. "What can we do? How can we learn from your experience?" Ethan smiled, and the room felt warmer. "Join me. We will train your minds and bodies, uncover hidden skills, and learn to harness the power of teamwork. Together, we can stand against darkness." The other cadets exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and fear swirling among them. Finally, one of Mia's closest friends, Jake, raised his hand. "What if we fail? What if we can't handle it?" Ethan's eyes softened. "Failure is a part of growth. It is how we learn. But as long as you stand together, you will find strength in one another." Commander Caden nodded, his expression slowly shifting from skepticism to support. "Very well. We will allow this training to proceed, under close observation." The cadets cheered, fueled by newfound hope. They began to see Ethan not just as a ghostly figure but as a mentor, a beacon of light in their dark universe. As the days passed, training began under Ethan's guidance. He led them through rigorous physical exercises that pushed them to their limits. He taught them to work together, building trust among their team. One day, during training, Mia stumbled while practicing a complicated maneuver. Instead of feeling ashamed, she felt Ethan's hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "You learn by trying, Mia," he encouraged. "Don't be afraid to fall." With each passing day, Mia grew stronger and more confident. The bond between the cadets tightened, becoming more than just friends. They were now a family, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the training progressed, a dark shadow loomed once more in the galaxy. Rumors spread of a new threat rising from the ashes of the Shadow Wars, one that sought to control powerful artifacts just like the one Ethan had used. Mia and her friends stood ready, courage burning in their hearts. They were no longer just cadets, they were defenders of the galaxy. The room fell silent once more, but this time it was filled with hope and determination. The future was uncertain, but together they could embrace whatever came their way. Cadet Alara, a young, determined cadet, haunted by a mysterious past. Commander Varkos, a stern, seasoned commander, known for his skepticism. Dr. Eris Thorne, a brilliant but eccentric scientist, specializing in xenopsychology. The room fell silent. Every head in the briefing chamber swiveled, every gaze locking onto Cadet Alara. The air, thick with the usual pre-mission tension, suddenly solidified, heavy and unyielding. Just moments ago, Commander Varkos had been laying out the operation, a routine survey of a newly discovered nebula. Now, the projected holographic display flickered, frozen on a single horrifying frame. A figure, impossibly agile, moved through a corridor bathed in the eerie green glow of an alien ship. Its movements were fluid, almost predatory, as it dismantled a security console with shocking speed. The figure was undeniably human, but possessed a brutal efficiency that chilled the blood. "This," Commander Varkos's voice boomed, shattering the silence, "is the reason for the heightened security protocols. This is the anomaly we've been tracking for the past 6 months. This is what we need to understand." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembled cadets, finally settling on Alara. "Cadet Alara," he continued, his voice dangerously low, "care to explain why the biometrics match yours?" Alara felt the blood drain from her face. Her breath hitched in her throat. The figure on the screen. It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. She had seen the footage before, during a general briefing on potential threats. She remembered the shudder of fear that had run down her spine, the unsettling feeling that she was looking at something inherently wrong. Now, that wrongness was staring back at her, reflected in the horrified faces of her peers. "Commander," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper, I don't understand. That's not me." Varkos raised a skeptical eyebrow, his expression unreadable. "The retinal scan doesn't lie, Cadet. Nor does the DNA analysis. We ran the cross-checks 3 times. The figure in that footage is you. Or, at the very least, a genetic match close enough to be indistinguishable. A murmur rippled through the ranks of cadets. Ilara could feel their eyes on her, burning with suspicion and fear. She had always been an outsider, a late addition to the academy, a scholarship student from a forgotten colony. Now, she was something worse, a potential traitor, a living weapon. "There has to be a mistake," she pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. "I've never been on an alien ship. I've never even left Federation space." "Perhaps," Varkos conceded, though his tone suggested otherwise. "That's what we intend to find out. Dr. Thorne will be joining us on this mission. He specializes in xenopsychology. He's eager to have a conversation with you, Cadet." Dr. Eris Thorne was an enigma, even by the standards of the Federation's scientific community. He was a brilliant mind, known for his unconventional methods and his fascination with the alien psyche. Some whispered that he had delved too deep into the minds of the unknown, that he had lost himself in the process. The journey to the nebula was agonizing for Ilara. Confined to her quarters, she was plagued by nightmares, visions of shadowed corridors and alien faces. She tried to piece together any explanation, any way to reconcile the image on the screen with the life she knew. But there was nothing. Just a blank space where memories should have been. When Dr. Thorne finally arrived, she was almost relieved. Anything was better than the suffocating uncertainty. Thorne was a wiry man with a shock of white hair and eyes that seemed to pierce through her very soul. He carried himself with an unsettling energy, a sense of barely contained excitement. "Cadet Ilara," he said, his voice raspy but warm. "So good to finally meet you. I've been looking forward to this conversation." He gestured for her to sit, then settled into the opposite chair, his gaze never leaving her face. "Tell me," he began, "what do you remember about your childhood?" Ilara hesitated, then began to recount the familiar story. Her upbringing on the remote mining colony of Cygnus 7, the accident that claimed her parents' lives, her subsequent acceptance into the Federation Academy. Thorne listened intently, occasionally interjecting with a question. He seemed less interested in the facts of her story than in the nuances of her expression, the subtle shifts in her body language. After hours of questioning, Thorne leaned back in his chair, a strange smile playing on his lips. "Fascinating," he murmured. "You genuinely believe your own narrative. But the mind is a fragile thing, Cadet. Memories can be altered, suppressed, even fabricated entirely." He paused, then leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "What if I told you that you were not raised on Cygnus 7? What if I told you that you were found, adrift in a derelict ship, near the edge of explored space?" Ilara stared at him, her mind reeling. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" Thorne countered. "The ship was of unknown origin, its technology far beyond anything we've ever encountered. On board, we found a single survivor, a child, no older than 5, with your face." He reached into his coat and produced a small data chip. He inserted it into a nearby console, and a new image flickered onto the screen. It was a picture of a young girl, no older than 5, lying unconscious on a metal floor. The girl was undeniably Ilara. "We ran every test imaginable," Thorne continued. "But we could find no trace of her origins. Her DNA was human, but subtly different, as if it had been engineered. Her mind was a blank slate. So, we did the only thing we could. We gave her a new identity, a new history. We wanted to see what she would become." Ilara felt a wave of nausea wash over her. Her entire life, everything she believed to be true, was a lie. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why would you do this to me?" "We wanted to understand," Thorne replied, his voice filled with a strange mixture of scientific curiosity and genuine compassion. "We wanted to understand the potential of the human mind, untethered from the constraints of its past. We wanted to see what you were capable of." The ship shuddered, jolting Ilara back to reality. "We're approaching the nebula," Varkos's voice crackled over the intercom. "All personnel, prepare for deployment." Ilara looked at Thorne, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and anger. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Thorne said, a strange glint in his eye, "we find out the truth. As the shuttle descended into the swirling clouds of the nebula, Elara knew that her life was about to change forever. The answers she sought lay hidden within the alien ship, waiting to be uncovered. But she also knew that the truth might be more terrifying than anything she could have imagined. The room fell silent once more, as Elara stepped out into the unknown, ready to confront the human in the footage, the person she might have been, the person she might still become. Lieutenant Commander Eva Rostova, Cadet Kenji Tanaka, Captain Miles, Mac McAllister, Dr. Eris Thorne, Ensign Lena Hansen. The room fell silent. The briefing room on the UNS Odyssey hummed with a low thrum, a sound usually masked by the boisterous chatter of the assembled officers. But now, silence reigned. Every eye was glued to the large holoscreen dominating the far wall. Even the air seemed to crackle with anticipation and a healthy dose of apprehension. Lieutenant Commander Eva Rostova, her face a mask of professional calm, stood beside Captain Miles, Mac McAllister. Mac, a veteran of countless skirmishes and known for his unshakable demeanor, ran a hand through his thinning hair, a telltale sign of his unease. Rostova knew this mission was getting to him. The holoscreen displayed grainy footage, a first-person perspective of a figure moving through a desolate, alien landscape. Twisted, purple vegetation clawed at the ground, and twin suns cast long, eerie shadows. The figure, clad in what appeared to be a tattered environmental suit, stumbled and coughed, their breath misting in the thin atmosphere. "This footage," Rostova began, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the silence, was recovered from a derelict research station on Kepler 186f. The station was abandoned decades ago, its crew presumed dead after a catastrophic environmental breach. A murmur rippled through the room. Kepler 186f was a graveyard of ambition, a testament to the dangers lurking in the vast expanse of space. What's so special about some old footage? Ensign Lena Hansen, fresh out of the academy and eager to prove herself, blurted out, her voice a little too loud in the tense atmosphere. McAllister shot her a look that could freeze plasma. "Ensign, show some respect. This isn't some historical documentary." He turned back to Rostova. "Continue, Commander." Rostova nodded, her gaze unwavering. The footage was corrupted, almost unrecoverable. But Dr. Thorne and his team managed to piece together a few fragmented minutes. She gestured towards a wiry man with perpetually tired eyes, standing near the back of the room. Dr. Eris Thorne, the Odyssey's chief xenolinguist and historian, offered a weary nod in acknowledgement. The figure on the screen paused, their heads snapping up. A low growl echoed through the audio, something guttural and distinctly non-human. The figure raised a weapon, a crude, makeshift energy rifle cobbled together from salvaged technology. "They were being hunted," Rostova stated, her voice grim, "by something native to the planet." The figure fired. A bolt of energy lanced through the air, striking an unseen target. A screech pierced the silence, followed by the sickening thud of something large hitting the ground. "But here's where it gets interesting," Thorne interjected, his voice raspy. "Notice the weapon. It's not standard issue. It's not even military grade. It's improvised. And the environment suit. It's a patchwork of different models, none of which match the original research team's specifications." The footage continued, showing the figure scavenging for supplies, building a crude shelter, fighting for survival against the harsh environment and the unseen predators. It was a desperate struggle, a testament to the will to live. Then, the figure removed their helmet. The room fell silent. On the holoscreen, staring back at them with wide, terrified eyes, was a young man. His face was gaunt, his hair matted with dirt, but his features were unmistakable. He was human. But that wasn't the shocking part. "Enhance the facial recognition software," McAllister barked, his voice tight. The computer hummed, processing the image. A moment later, a name flashed across the screen: Cadet Kenji Tanaka. Kenji Tanaka was standing in the room. He was a fresh-faced cadet, barely out of his teens, assigned to the Odyssey for a training cruise. He stood ramrod straight, his eyes wide with disbelief, his face pale. He looked like he was about to faint. All eyes turned to him. The silence was deafening, broken only by the hum of the ship and the cadet's shallow breaths. "Cadet Tanaka," McAllister said, his voice carefully neutral. "Do you have any explanation for this?" Tanaka swallowed, his throat bobbing nervously. I don't understand, sir. I've never been to Kepler 186F. I've never even left Earth before this mission. The footage doesn't lie, Cadet, Rostova said, her voice gentle but firm. That's you on that screen. Fighting for your life, decades ago. Thorne stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. It's impossible, of course. Time travel is still theoretical. And even if it were possible, the temporal paradoxes, he trailed off, shaking his head. But it's him, Hansen whispered, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. It's definitely him. McAllister held up a hand, silencing the murmurs. We need to understand this. Cadet Tanaka, you said you've never been off Earth. Can you account for your time? Any gaps in your memory? Any strange dreams? Anything at all? Tanaka racked his brain, his brow furrowed in concentration. I had a recurring dream, sir. Ever since I was a kid. I was always running, being chased through a strange forest. The sky was always purple, and there were two suns. A collective gasp filled the room. And the weapon, Rostova said, her voice low. The improvised energy rifle. Do you know anything about that, Cadet? Tanaka hesitated. I used to draw it, sir. Over and over again. I didn't know why, but I just felt compelled to. I even wrote down schematics, detailed instructions on how to build it. Thorne's eyes widened. May I see those schematics, Cadet? Tanaka nodded, his face a mixture of confusion and fear. They're in my quarters, sir. McAllister turned to Rostova. Commander, escort Cadet Tanaka to his quarters. Retrieve the schematics. Dr. Thorne, you're with me. We need to analyze this footage, look for any clues, any inconsistencies. As they filed out of the briefing room, Rostova placed a comforting hand on Tanaka's shoulder. Don't worry, Cadet. We'll figure this out. But as she looked into his bewildered eyes, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface of a much deeper, much stranger mystery. The silence of the briefing room had been broken, but the questions that remained echoed louder than ever. The cadet before them was the human in the footage. Oh. The answer eluded them. Back in the briefing room, McAllister and Thorne pored over the footage, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of the holoscreen. The suit, Thorne said, pointing to a close-up of the tattered environmental suit. It's a composite of at least 3 different models. One of them is a pre-Federation design, from the early days of space exploration. The other 2 are more recent, but they're both obsolete. Where would he even get these? McAllister frowned. And the timeline, it doesn't make sense. If that footage is decades old, how can Tanaka be standing here as a young cadet?